we waited and it paid off. It seems like the Mandalorian Season 3 finale will be the most epic in recent times, more perhaps rivaling the Season 2 finale with Luke. This episode was pretty beautiful to see it started on the streets of Coruscant, because absolutely that's my daily wish. We see that indeed Elia Kane has been secretly communicating with the Imperial Remnant as she meets with a probe droid in a secret dark alley, and on holoprojection, who else but Moff Gideon appears talking to Elia Kane, speaking about how the Mandalorians are starting to band together, confirming that yes, the pirates had a link with Elia Kane and Moff Gideon as well because they failed on Navarro. Moff Gideon dismisses her, tells her to go to her secret work. He will handle the Mandalorians. What happens next is pretty remarkable because not only do we see his secret facility, we go on to see much more than we even realize, because at first we get a Phantom Menace Easter egg here, the final moments of Qui-Gon Jinn fighting against Darth Maul. On the sides, there are new looking soldiers wearing Beskar armor. They seem to be Mandalorian stormtroopers. They resemble a lot of Gar Saxon and his faction that worked for the Empire, but in fact later on we go on to understand that they are the new version, the new form of Dark Troopers. My suspicion, of course, him calling them Dark Troopers, but they are clearly not mechanical. They move, fight like humans, and even scream when they're getting killed. This means that they are human-like, and this might explain the people in the vats. These might be clones bred for specific use, bred to be Dark Troopers, serving Moff Gideon. Dr. Pershing's work might have not gone in vain. We see that Dr. Pershing is not only famous with Moff Gideon, a lot of other people know him because now we get introduced to the Shadow Council. Prominent figures in what is left of the Empire now are talking to each other, planning, scheming. Between these, we get to see a lot of familiar faces in Legends and some new faces in canon. So first and foremost, I want to talk about Gilad Pellaeon. He of course is the Imperial who talks first about Grand Admiral Thrawn and his return, then mocked by Moff Gideon and all that exchange. But what you should know is that he was an important figure in Star Wars Legends. In fact, he was created by Timothy Zahn as well to be the right-hand man of Grand Admiral Thrawn even back then. So we see that Dave Filoni and the others have taken it upon themselves to revive a lot of Timothy Zahn's creations that were stuck in limbo in Legends. Now, Pellaeon is canon again. And as we can see, he has pretty much helmed the same role as being the main servant of Grand Admiral Thrawn, probably will be his right-hand man in the Ahsoka series too. We also get to see Brandal Hux. He of course is Armitage Hux's father that we see in the Star Wars sequels, but most importantly, we now understand that he was the one to work on Project Necromancer. We probably know what this refers to. The Project Necromancer could be directly involved with the resurrection of Emperor Palpatine that we will see years later in The Rise of Skywalker. The thing about it that puzzles me is that, in principle, the First Order was not aware of Palpatine's revival, but General Hux's father was involved with Project Necromancer. Conflict there, but I guess they will clear it later on. But with this, now we finally get the confirmation of Grand Admiral Thrawn. If the Ahsoka trailer wasn't enough, things have started moving finally. In The Mandalorian, we get a mention of Grand Admiral Thrawn, but what we learn from this Imperial Shadow Council and this whole talk is that the Empire is not weak by any means. They still hold a lot of power in their ranks, in their military, in their technology, and as one general said, even in their supporters, because in every system, the Empire is somewhat supported still by some old heads, I guess. By the way, Moff Gideon asks for a lot of things from the Shadow Council, reinforcements, equipment, and so forth, but more specifically, Praetorian Guards. This will come into play later. IG-11 is back again as IG-12 now. The Anzellans have made an opening on the chest of IG-12 now, so that somebody could utilize the exoskeleton. The funny part is that Grogu finally talks. Kinda. because they have installed also two voice functions in IG-12, and that is IG-12 saying yes or no. Funnily enough, Grogu makes use of this a lot during the episode, both in funny ways and in serious ways, as we'll see later on. Things start moving when Bo-Katan's faction finally meets the Children of the Watch. At first, it is contentious. However, it is the armor who calms things down. And not losing any time, Bo-Katan wants volunteers for all of them to go and, as a recon team on Mandalore, start the process of retaking their planet back. There, they meet more Mandalorian survivors on the surface who were afraid to get out of the planet at the time because they were bombarding ships as well. Two of the leaders I have seen in some series and movies, but the one I am mostly familiar with, and I gasped when I saw him, is Charles Baker. Now, Charles Baker is, of course, Skinny Pete in Breaking Bad. Yeah, let that sink in. Skinny Pete is a Mandalorian. And there is a sad moment where we now understand more than we were previously let known. We now know that Bo-Katan, in fact, surrendered to Moff Gideon during the bombardment during the Night of 1,000 Tears, when it was made clear that none would survive. The ISB wanted to make a ceasefire proposed by Moff Gideon. Of course, she was betrayed in the end. The bombardment did not stop, more were killed, and the Darksaber was taken from Bo-Katan. This is why in Season 1 and 2, Moff Gideon had the Darksaber. Furthermore, by the armor, we understand during this time that the Death Watch have officially stopped existing by this point. They have splintered into many groups, and as we now are made aware, there are other Death Watch former members around the galaxy. So this is not the complete reunification of Mandalorians. These survivors are moving around in what seems like a sail barge on land, and a creature attacks them out of nowhere. Perhaps even some die. When they finally find the forge and are trying to scout, they see jetpacks flying for them. They hope there are other surviving Mandalorians. In fact, these are the Dark Troopers of Moff Gideon. Now wearing Beskar armor, they are harder to kill. The fight ensues until they are essentially led into a trap. The gang starts following the retreating Dark Troopers into a tight space where both doors are closed to trap Bo-Katan, Paz Vizsla, and many others. Only Din Djarin and two other Mandalorians are left on the other side of the door. Unfortunately, two of them are killed and Din Djarin is captured by the Dark Troopers. They finally realize what's been going on Mandalore this entire time. This has been the secret base of operations of Moff Gideon this entire time, including after he escaped. We also see a very cool looking armor, I must say. Moff Gideon was dripped out in this episode. It pretty much was a cross between a reference to Darth Maul and also a reference to Inquisitors. The red visor especially gave me Inquisitor vibes, but the helmet is clearly Darth Maul inspired, with the spikes and with the red markings around the sides. It just gives you that vibe. And if it wasn't clear by now, yes, now we know why there were Beskar fragments on the Lambda ship when Captain Teva found it. Suspecting, of course, Mandalorians, this is not the case. As we see, the Beskar fragments came from his Dark Troopers 2.0. Moff Gideon provokes Bo-Katan into returning the Darksaber to its rightful owner, meaning him, and when Bo-Katan refuses and starts opening a tunnel for escape, the gates open and the shooting starts. It's interesting that Paz Vizsla held his own and saved basically everybody, because everybody was able to get away using that tunnel. In saving Bo-Katan, Paz Vizsla essentially sacrifices himself by closing the door behind him, leaving Bo-Katan with no other choice but to escape for herself, his last words to her being, "This is the way." As he fights the Dark Troopers, there is a moment of hope there where he kills them all, but from the side, shadowy figures come out alive. As we see, these are the Praetorian Guards. The Praetorian Guards that we first saw in The Last Jedi protecting Snoke, albeit not that successfully, of course, but they tried. As we know, both Snoke and the Praetorian Guards were completely decimated by Kylo Ren and Rey. Will that be the case here too? Will Moff Gideon be killed and the Praetorian Guards killed as well? That is for the finale to tell us. Naturally, being exhausted, Praetorian Guards having outnumbered Paz Vizsla 3-1, they kill him, and this is the ending scene. It is pretty grim as it ends with Din Djarin Djarin being captured by Moff Gideon and imprisoned, and Paz Vizsla dead. It's gonna be a bumpy ride for our heroes going forward, and this is why the finale will be, I think, the most watched episode in this season, because it's building up to be a lot trickier than we thought, especially now knowing that Thrawn could make a cameo finally. What did you guys think about the entire episode? Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a thumbs up down below, subscribe for dailies. Now you can have an awesome day, Star Wars fans. I'll see you in the next video, and may the Force be with you. Till then.